All right, welcome everybody to Inside the Coach's Office. I'm your host Dan Murphy, alongside my co-host Brian Barnes. And Brian, how we doing today?
Good. It's been a hectic day of football and fitting in my family time and stuff. Was able to get over to the cider mill for the first time today, just for a
Oh,
little bit,
nice.
man. It was nice. But it was I would love to say it was a great day of football for us fans of our local team, but that wouldn't be the case.
Yeah,
But other than that, it was a pretty good day.
yeah. I mean, a beautiful, beautiful fall day. Sometimes you get into early November and you start getting those cold, rainy, nasty days. But today was not one of those days. Absolutely beautiful fall day. But from 1 to 4 o'clock, a lot of us were not enjoying the day as the Lions, unfortunately, today fall to the Minnesota Vikings 27-24. Just not what anybody expected. The Lions were double-digit favorites going into this game, and I think if you asked most Lions fans before this game started, they would have thought this was going to be a blowout today. Like it just seemed like everything was shaping up. The Lions were coming off a bye week. This was JJ McCarthy's first game back after a long injury. I think he missed like the previous 5 games. He's still, a very young quarterback. Vikings haven't been playing, that well. And the Vikings come in here and get the 27-24 win. What were your initial thoughts, looking back at this game, Brian?
Ma- I mean, I'm with everybody else. Like I thought this was a game the Lions should win and should win pretty handedly, and that obviously wasn't the case. I think I was pretty impressed with JJ McCarthy today. Like his numbers
Yeah,
weren't off the charts, right? But he played pretty well and made plays when he had to. And he made plays with his legs when he had to. And that big third down with on their final drive to Naylor, that big third down throw and catch, like that was a great
yeah,
ball. So that stood out to me. And but it's the NFL, and maybe we shouldn't be surprised. I mean, Kevin O'Connell is a good coach, and he had a good game plan. And the Vikings have a lot of veterans, and they're pretty prideful. They were a playoff team. They were a game away a year ago from being the number one seed in the NFC, and so I know they struggled a little bit to start the season, but it's possible I'm also just making myself feel better as a Lions fan today because there was a lot of things they did not do well. I don't think they pass
yeah,
protected really well. I don't think Jameer Gibbs got enough touches. We finally found some or saw some JMO plays in the second half, but not enough, and just not a good loss at all. I don't think anybody looked at this game and say, "Oh, okay, you know what? That's a game that could go either way." I don't think anybody felt that. I'd be curious to see how many of the sports experts in Minnesota picked the Vikings to win today. I
yeah.
doubt there were many. But again, that's the NFL.
Yeah, I think the most shocking thing to me is the lack of a running game for the Lions. 20 carries for 65 yards total, 3.3 average. Gibbs only had 25 yards on 9 carries, Montgomery 40 yards on 11 carries, and then Gibbs in the passing game had 3 catches for 3 yards. And after his explosive game Monday Night Football a couple of weeks ago, where he had over 200 total yards and just really dominated that game, man, Minnesota just shut him down and shut the Lions run game down. I think that is concerning and shocking from this game.
It is, and the Vikings defensive line played really well, and Brian
Oh my
Flores,
God,
they were
dominant.
really well, right? And you could argue they were the best unit on the field today for either team,
Yeah,
and Brian Flores, again, defensive coordinator, has been a head coach, like he knows what he's doing. So again, like maybe we shouldn't be surprised, but but I'm with you. Like the Lions just seem to be in a funk from the get go. It looked like
well, they
Minnesota.
had that first drive. They had the
Well,
first
it's
drive where
funny.
they
Well,
and they looked dominant the first
that
drive. We're
is
like, oh man, they go up 7-0. You think well, the route is on now.
right. I'll give you that the first drive, but we've talked before the first drive. Like it's hard to simulate game speed in practice, right? For
Yeah,
defenses, and offenses. That's why, like as a coach, I always like taking the ball first, just because I feel you have that advantage. And but other than that, that entire first quarter just seemed a little bit right. Like you could tell something was off a little bit, and um, it reminded me of, was it a couple of years ago or was it last year when the Lions got smoked by the Bills? It was last year, wasn't it last year?
last
Remember the
year. Yeah.
Lions last year, right?
Yep.
And like the Bills are a better team than the Vikings, but like the juice just wasn't there, right? It just felt like the juice wasn't there. And again, though, it's hard. I had lunch today with a former player of mine. It was really cool when we were talking about stuff, and we kind of talked about how, gosh, like even though they didn't win the Super Bowl, how impressive was it for the Patriots to go undefeated? Because again, it like so many things have to go right, right, for that to happen. And maybe the Minnesota gives them credit, like their season was on the line. Like if they lose this game and go to 3-5, like they're 3 games behind the Lions, and they're gonna have a hard time, catching them. And so to them, could argue it was their biggest game up to this point, and give them credit, like you said, their defense and their defensive line played extremely well.
Yeah, I mean, definitely playing with some desperation with their season, like you said, on the line. But I think the biggest takeaway nationally is going to be the play of JJ McCarthy. And if he continues on a run and has a good season, he has a long career, like you're going to look back at this game as just kind of his coming out party. And even though the stats don't really show it as much, like if you watch that game, like he just continued to make plays, like whether it was making plays with his feet to get first downs, whether it was, just creating more time for himself to get the ball downfield. But there was some pass plays where, there was some deep out patterns that he was able to put on the money. That those are the throws that separate you from being a good NFL quarterback and a quarterback that's not going to make it in this league. And he was making those throws today. And then you talked about the Naylor throw, the last completion, the kind of the backyard fade, kind of, or back shoulder fade, excuse me. And just, I mean, the coverage wasn't that bad by Millette. You'd prefer, if you're a Lions fan, you'd prefer like not Millette to be the one that's in that coverage. And it kind of goes back to their injuries in the secondary. But his coverage
Yeah.
wasn't bad. That was just an
Sure.
absolutely perfect throw and a great catch and a great route and just like a fantastic play on the Vikings' part to make that play.
I definitely noticed that it was ironic. It was a Michigan quarterback to a Michigan State receiver, which was kind of cool to have the winning
Yeah.
play for the Vikings. Which was a side note, side topic. But the quarterback's most important job, right? You ask any coach, is they got to lead their team to a win, right? However you do it, And Troy Aikman didn't put up gaudy numbers. He let Michael Irvin and Emmett Smith do that, and but he was a winner and he won games. So yeah, absolutely. JJ McCarthy, he had the one interception, but other than that, again, fantastic game by him.
Yeah, absolutely. And so where do we go here with the Lions, Brian? They're 5-3 now. That's already more losses than last season. And it goes to show you how impressive that 15-2 season was last year, because God, is it hard to win in the NFL, man. Week to week, it is difficult to win. But you look at this division, because Green Bay had a very surprising loss to the
Mm.
Carolina Panthers today. And with the Bears winning and obviously the Vikings winning, now the division has gotten super, super close now. And when you thought, just a week ago, you thought really this is going to be a 2-team race, all of a sudden you look at the standings and now all 4 teams are in play, and this is going to be a battle to the end. Now all 4 teams are going to be involved.
It is, and we had talked about on one of our earlier shows how much more difficult the schedule is this year compared to the prior couple of years for the Lions. And um, it's funny though, looking at the schedule, I don't think this was a game that people would have said, "Oh, that's uber tough one." All right, it was more the Kansas City, the Tampa Bay, and the Baltimore and Green Bay. And speaking of Green Bay, you mentioned it. Like this loss felt like the worst they've played since that Week 1 Green Bay loss, right? And the Lions responded. The Lions
Yeah.
responded pretty well to that, right? Putting up 52 against Chicago. So I'm not overly concerned. The challenging part now, if you looking at their again the tough schedule, is the next 2 games are away, right, at Washington and at Philadelphia.
Yep.
So Washington isn't playing great right now. They're 3-5 and not necessarily healthy, but man, it's still on the road in the NFL. And and the Lions had obviously lost to them in the playoffs last year. So I think if you're a Lions fan, you're hoping to. I mean, if you split one of these next two, I'm not saying they can't win both, but you split one of these next two, and then you are 6-4 going into this stretch where they should be the favorite in every game against the Giants, home games, the Giants, the Packers on Thanksgiving, and then the Cowboys on Thursday night. So you would think, in theory, the Lions favored to win those games, and you're at 9-4. Boom, like you're feeling pretty good, going into those final couple games. But if they, if they're 5-5 in 2 weeks, we're having this conversation. Ooh, that's
Yeah.
that's scary. That's scary. And you're
Yeah.
right. And it's funny you mentioned the Packers losing today. Like, yeah, they're the Lions are still the best team in this division, right? Like that's a young
I think
again
so
young court. You know
too.
what I mean? Young quarterback. Like, how do you lose to Cleveland and then how do you lose at home to Carolina? You know what I mean? Like, I don't think like as bad as the Vikings. And I don't even know if the Vikings were again a game away a year ago from being the number one seed. So this isn't a
They just
horrible
like quality quarterback play.
for sure.
If they're
Yep,
going to get
for
quality quarterback play from JJ, then
totally,
that changes the whole narrative of where this
totally,
division's going to go.
totally does. And but yeah, like so the Lions, you look at it that way, like okay, I still think regardless of the standings today, it's their division to lose. And so it's just because it's just a big deal, the importance of next week's game in Washington, I think. Now it's even more magnified than before.
Yeah, because if they lose back-to-back games for the first time since October of 2022, and then you got to go into Philadelphia on a Sunday night football game, yeah, I think fans are going to be in panic mode.
And it's one of those things like we talked about it before. The Lions, I don't think it's the splits are as big as they used to be in the NFL, but they'd probably rather prefer to play inside. So again, getting a home playoff game at least the first couple weeks is critical. And if you're at 5-5 and man, you're scrambling to the end and there's no shot at that first round bye, and you got to rest people or you can't rest people at all, and oof, goodness. That's problematic. But
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't be concerned about that, kind of them bouncing back, and your key players, having big games next week. Your St. Browns, your Gibbs, Goff, all those guys, they're gonna step up. They're gonna bounce back as they
mhm,
always do. Especially after a loss like we talked about, they don't lose back to back games. But the concern now is with the injuries. You already had the injuries in the secondary, which I think showed themselves a little bit more today than they did last week. Obviously, the Vikings had film on them. You're able to see some things that maybe Tampa Bay didn't see before. Minnesota's even able to take some advantage of some of those things. But my biggest concern now is the offensive line. The injuries, the offensive line. You're seeing
mhm.
Decker, man. I don't know if he's going to last. He just seems like he's just the walking wounded right now. And when he does play, he's going down quite a bit, having to miss some time in game, if not missing games completely. And then Mahogany, that looked gruesome. I haven't
Yeah.
seen. Only thing I've seen is that he's going to be out a while, but I haven't seen anything confirmed on what the injury was. But it sounds like that's going to be long term, and they don't have a lot of depth. They couldn't afford to lose guys, and to lose Mahogany is going to be a big blow to that offensive line.
It is, and you talked about the run game a little bit, and you'd like to think that I think when you talk about the Lions and their offense, and as explosive as they are and can be, like I still think you would say they hang their head on the running game, right? And that's something that you would like them to, no matter what, in any type of game situation, they're still able to run the ball. And to your point, they weren't able to do that, and I'm sure part of it was because they're banged up front, and so whenever anybody talks about the trade deadline, especially in the NFL, again, I don't think it's like it is in other sports where you acquire that guy and he's just going to carry you far.
Yeah.
That being said, though, like obviously, like if the Lions are getting beat up and up front, like maybe that's something now they explore, even though the expectation is they're not going to do anything. Um, it's probably something you might need to have those conversations now. If
The
Mhm,
problem is though, and I talked about this with Tom on Tuesday and the Detroit Sports Sits On, and I talked about like the position that I would like to see them most be able to get would be offensive line, but that
mhm.
is a very difficult position to be able to pick
It
up
is.
mid-season.
It
For one,
is.
you don't see it traded very often, right? And two, for a guy to come in, it's not like it's just plug and go. Like you got to learn the entire
It
offense.
would
You got to get the chemistry with your other linemen. You got to know all the calls, all the blitz pickups. That's not something you can pick
mm,
up in a few days.
no, it's potentially you're looking at somebody like a diamond in the rough or somebody who's played in for John Morton before or somebody who knows the scheme, somebody right? Somebody who kind of knows the
Yeah.
terminology already if that's the way you're going to go because to
That's
your
really
point,
threading the needle
it's
to try
not
to make
it
something like
is.
that happen.
It's not just trade for a guy that can play any of the five offensive line positions because they're
Yeah.
five distinct positions. They really are, and sometimes fans don't recognize that, right? But those are 5 different skill sets. You know what I'm saying? So potentially maybe they're targeting a guy or targeting a position that like, okay, we need some more capable dudes there to to potentially acquire. But um, again, we could be getting ahead of ourselves, and that might not be the case at all. And they're just going to roll with what they have. But every team has injuries, as I say.
I think they're going
We
to make a
saw
move.
that,
I think
but
they're going to make a move or two,
I
and whether they make a big move or not is in question. But I
and
definitely think
maybe
they're going to try to get at least a couple depth pieces.
well, and last year, right after the Aiden Hutchinson injury, I think we felt as fans they had to do something big, right? And I mean, Darius Smith, okay, semi big, maybe, maybe not. But I'm with you. This year, I don't feel like they need to make that quote unquote big move, so to speak. But more of like that depth acquire.
I don't know.
Mm.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Acquisition.
Who knows what Brad Holmes is thinking right now? But I mean, we get these rumors all the time. Sometimes it's just clickbait. Sometimes it's just, people just trying to get views. But the Lions' name is mentioned with Hendrickson
Mm.
from Cincinnati,
Hmm.
and maybe it's a question of like, hey, maybe our offensive line's beat up. That's not a position we can really go out and trade for. The secondary, maybe there aren't guys that are going to fit in. Maybe you're kind of hoping you get guys back. But what's a position that we could theoretically make a move? There's guys out there available, and we could make our entire team better by making this move. Even though we didn't necessarily need it, it might improve our overall team by going out and making that move. And whether it's Trey Hendrickson or one of the defensive ends from Miami, like it seems like the rush ends, the availability of those guys is a little bit more. You might be able to swing a move for that more like if you're going to make a big type move
Yeah,
than somebody in the secondary or an offensive line piece.
I guess though, is there a position where that's going to put them over the top, and you can say like, okay, they are 100% definitely the best team in the NFC,
I think
right?
a Hendrickson move could do that because you could put Hendrickson on the opposite side of Hutch. Now you're
Mm,
cutting down how much time a quarterback has. That helps everybody on the defense. It obviously helps your secondary. They're not
yeah,
covering as long. It frees up Hutch. He's not going to get double teamed as much. Or if he is getting double teamed, you're going to get one-on-ones for Hendrickson.
yeah,
Like, but obviously the cost is going to be
sure.
ginormous. And my thing with that too is, when you look at the offensive line, you look at it going forward, right? I don't know. I don't think Decker's going to come back. I really think this is his last year. Like he's just so beat up, and there was talk of him kind of like maybe
Hmm.
thinking retirement before this season because of the injuries he's dealing with, and but he wants to win a Super Bowl so bad, obviously. But after all these injuries he's going through this season now, after already coming in hurt, I think this might be it for him. So you're going to have to in the draft. You're going to have to go out and get somebody. You're going to have to need. You're probably going to need an offensive tackle, right? I mean, they don't really. Manu hasn't worked out, right? He was a project who just doesn't look like he's going to be ready at any time soon. And Skipper's, more of a backup piece. He's not going to be somebody that steps in the starting. But so you're going to probably need to draft somebody,
Is
and
there
you're going to
is
need that
there
draft capital to potentially move up to try to get a top tier offensive tackle in the
let
draft.
me ask you this, Dan. Is it because I saw somebody else say this today on Twitter? When he talked about, hey, now the game plan's out there, right? Like, hey, pressure Goff, bring heat, in the Viking, be dominant up front, and the Lions are in trouble. Like, is
That's
it?
easier said than done,
I was
though.
just gonna say, is my point. My point is like, is it possible this is all like recency bias? Like, hey, like this is how we're feeling a couple hours after they lost to the Vikings. Like, okay,
I'm
like,
just concerned about the
you know,
injuries.
well, I
With Mahogany being out now, and then
yeah,
Decker, you don't know play to play, let alone game to game, week to week, what you're going to get from him.
right,
That's my concern because if you're starting getting injuries, they don't have the depth, they don't have the quality backups to step in and play at a high level. I don't believe that's more my concern. When the guys are healthy and playing, sure. The
yeah.
problem with this game was they never really had their whole offensive line. It seemed like one guy would go out, come back in, another guy would go out. Um, so when you don't have the consistency of having that starting group together, you can see the problems that it can create. They couldn't run the ball. The pass protection was terrible, but I put that more on the guys being shuffled in and out with the injuries.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I mean Tuesday, I mean, there'll be a lot of chatter to the next couple days. And
Yeah.
I don't know. If I'm sitting here, I know you think they're doing something. I don't think they're doing something. I don't think so.
You don't think they're going to do anything that's going to move the needle?
Not yeah,
I think some
right.
depth pieces, but
And back to what you said too. it's especially up front. It's hard to acquire that position for the reasons you
Yeah.
mentioned. So yeah, we'll
And
see.
I would say, just to point out one thing in terms of moves, and that, you saw the Eagles go out and get two defensive backs.
Hmm.
It's like, man, come on. You
Right,
kind of would
right.
like to see the Lions.
I
They always seem to be so aggressive, Philadelphia, and it is a little bit frustrating. I think from a Lions fan perspective, it's like, man, I mean, kind of nice for the Lions that gotten those defensive backs just to add, to
mhm.
their depth when they have so many injuries, but yeah, but we got till Tuesday, and there's going to be a lot of pressure. You're going to hear it a lot on the radio, and you're going to hear a lot of, on Twitter, and that you pushing the Lions to try to make a move.
Yep,
So we'll see what happens. It's going to be an interesting few
yep.
days, but yeah, just to wrap things up, Lions lose 27-24 to the Vikings, and going into this game, we thought this division was going to be a two horse race, and all of a sudden, both the Lions and Packers lose games that were not expected, and obviously the Vikings win and the Bears also win. So it's going to be a battle in the NFC North going forward here. So let's go ahead and shift gears. We're going to talk a little bit of college football, and looking back at last night's competition there. Michigan, wins another ugly game, 21-16 against Purdue. Never really looked dominant in this game. Like, you were hoping that Michigan would kind of come out and control this game from beginning to end, but man, they let Purdue hang around really all the way to the bitter end here. And Brian, what were your thoughts about this game? And a lot of fans are getting frustrated with Sharon Moore, and you see things like, man, they can't go forward with this guy. Man, he just isn't the guy right now. He's not getting Michigan to the next level. But I keep looking at him like, they still keep winning. Like, I know it's ugly, but they're winning games, and they still control their own destiny to potentially get in the playoff spot and maybe even get in the Big Ten title race. But more importantly, just make the playoffs if they can win out here.
Yeah, it's a nice problem to have when you're 7-2 and you're going to be favored the next 3 weeks, or two, two of their next three
2
games,
weeks, yeah.
2 weeks. Yeah, right. And then to be frustrated and complain about how they're winning games, right? And
Yeah.
which again is fair, right? They have been sloppy. Like this wasn't a game. You would think, well ahead of time they're going to win by more than 5 against a pretty bad Purdue team, but this is who they are, and we shouldn't be surprised anymore. They run the ball very well. Bryce Underwood is still a freshman who's developing, and they don't have a ton of explosive guys on the outside. But the one thing they do have, if you look at their schedule and the games they've won, they're more talented than the teams they've beaten. Right, and they're going to be more talented. They're better overall than Northwestern and Maryland, and so they'll win those games, and they'll probably be sloppy too. And again, be 9-2 going into that game that you said, against the Buckeyes, who will still probably be not ranked number one, undefeated going into that game. And as we've seen, who knows? Although they look better now than they did a year ago. Like Julian saying looks a lot better than the Buckeyes quarterback play from a year ago. Why can't I think of their quarterback's name a year ago? Oh my gosh, this is bad. But he does. He looks like a Heisman candidate, and he's playing really well. And they look good. But yeah, again, like, you're winning games, and sometimes there's a skill to win games when you're not playing great and you're not dominating every facet of the game, and that's where they're at right now. And I it's unfair, but it's the reality of coaching at Michigan. Again, Sharon Moore is 7-2. He's 5-1 in conference, and people are giving him a hard time. Like,
Yeah,
people,
it's wild to me.
it's
It's like, what
style
did
of
you
play.
expect? Like, what do you want? It's an 18-year-old quarterback that's still developing, and you saw it. Like, the defense played pretty well. I mean, 16 points at Purdue, maybe at home, maybe a little bit more than you'd like to give up, but still, like, they had 2 drives that should have ended up in touchdowns, and it was Underwood that created those turnovers. Like, he had McCauley wide open in the end zone, and said he throws the crossing route for an interception inside the 5-yard line, and then another drive where he's running towards the goal line and he fumbles, and it goes out of the end zone, and it's a turnover, a touchback. So those are 2 drives right there that should have ended up in touchdowns, and you just saw the inexperience and the young play by a freshman quarterback. And you were getting later in the year now. You wish you'd not see those things, but still, it's at the end of the day, it's a freshman quarterback that's developing, and we knew you were gonna get your your lumps and your growing pains throughout this season. And you're still seeing a really incredible running game. Marshall's been incredible. He's put the team on his back, and the defense is still playing pretty well. They're not a great defense, but they're still pretty good. You lose Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham in the middle of that defense, to the NFL draft. It's you expect a little bit of a downturn, a little bit, and you've seen that a little bit. But overall, like you said, man, only 2 losses, and they still control their own destiny. Like I don't understand the outcry for Sharon Moore to be fired. Like what? Yeah. I don't get it. Like they control their own destiny. They win the next 2 games. They're 9-2 going into the Ohio State game. You're playing them at home. It's a top 10 matchup. It's a huge national game. And if you win that game and you beat Ohio State for the 5th straight year, you're going to the playoffs. I mean, yeah. This is exactly where I thought they would be. Exactly how I thought this season was going to go. So as a Michigan fan, a lifelong Michigan fan, I'm not frustrated at all. Like, yeah, what I'd like to see a little bit more, and I would like to see the development of Underwood be a little bit further along at this point. But overall, this is exactly where I thought they would be.
Yeah, I agree. And by the way, Will Howard's the quarterback at Ohio State a year ago. That's
Will Howard. Yeah,
embarrassing. That's embarrassing on my part. But yeah. So it would. I think people would be feeling different if like they lost that Nebraska game, which they won by 3, or they lost the Purdue game yesterday, or they lost to Michigan State a week ago. Then I think it's like, okay, like you have legit reasons to be concerned and question what they're doing. They haven't looked great at times, but again, to your point, they're 7-2, and like they've got a good recruiting class coming in a year ago, right? Who knows what the transfer situation is going to be like next year? You'll have Bryce Underwood as a sophomore quarterback. Like, you go, the frustrating part, I can see this being Michigan. So let's say they're 9-2 going into that Ohio State game. They lose and go 9-3. How motivated are a lot of their guys in the bowl game finish, and then they're 9-4? All right. On the surface, Michigan fans, I mean, people will still be pretty upset at that, right? But again, it's still kind of a program, like not in transition. Maybe that's not right, because the expectations are always high there. But like, I think realists could see this coming, right? I think real football people understand the game and understand that this happens, especially at that quarterback position. This is going to happen, and I'm with you. Like they're going to be 9-2. They're not losing to Northwestern or in Maryland. And I said that I thought the Maryland game would be a little bit tougher, but they're not losing either one of those games. They're 9-2, going to play for arguably not a share of the Big Ten championship, because who knows if, but a spot in the Big Ten championship game and a playoff spot. Or you know what I'm saying? And those two things are on the line. And if you had said to a Michigan fan, regardless of record before the season, that's going to happen going into that Ohio State game, like that's what's on the table, everyone would have taken it. Everyone would have taken it.
Absolutely. In Underwood's first year. Like I think once
Underwood's first year,
it was established that he was going to be the starting quarterback, they weren't going to go out and get, a big time senior transfer to play a year, kind of like, Will Howard did last year, right? Like that wasn't going to be that situation. It was going to be Underwood's team from the get-go. You knew there was going to be growing pains. You knew there's going to be some difficulties throughout this season. And to be in this spot, to still control your own destiny as we get into November, like, yeah, I'll take that, because he's playing the entire year. He's playing his entire freshman year. That's an entire year of development. All these road games that he's going to get experience in, he's going to get the experience in that Ohio State game. Like, this is all going to be huge for him going forward to be able to play this entire year. So now you go into the next year, and you know what you need. You got to go out and get some big time receivers. Mm-hmm. And you would think it would be, obviously money's not going to be a problem. So you'd think they're going to be able to go out in the transfer portal and get some top tier receivers, probably some of the best that are available to go along with Underwood. Because that's what they're missing, is just that explosiveness and the athleticism and the wide receiver group. And to take them to the next level, because they got the defense, and I think that defense is going to continue to be good, for the next few years. And then, they're always going to have the running game. Like, as long as Sharon Moore is the head coach, like that running game is always going to be strong. They're always going to have a strong offensive line. And Marshall's got, another couple of years of eligibility too. So, so they're set there, and obviously you're going to have Underwood. So they just got to go out and get some receivers. That's without question, it's the missing piece to this team right now.
Well, and again, college football, we've hammered this home so many times. College football used to be every game mattered and we loved it, right? And I'm not saying games don't matter, but every game had significance on your postseason opportunities, right? Okay, like they have an opportunity if they continue to if they get better over the next 3-4 weeks, like they're still playing for something. And it used to be if you have two losses, hey, are we still playing for a New Year's Day bowl game? Like that was a reward. No, now you're playing for a shot to get hot like Ohio State did a year ago and play for a national title. Like that's something that fans should be. I mean, it can be both things can be right. You can be frustrated, sloppy win yesterday, not great, right? But still, like just keep getting better and win these next couple weeks, and you have something to play for at the end of the season. Huge,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Huge. Yeah.
If you
A
if
lot.
if you could get to the Ohio State game and you have that game at home with a chance to go to the playoffs if you win it, like you have the mental edge on them. You've won it 4 years in a row. Like there's going to be like, regardless of how Michigan, if Michigan can win these next two games, regardless of how they win them, if they, if it's more of these 21-16
Mm.
slogfest, whatever you want to call them, just ugly wins, who cares? You get to that, you get to noon, in that last, November Saturday against Ohio State, and you got them coming to your house, like for 3 hours, like, man, if you can go out and ball out and have one good game, like all of a sudden you're in the playoffs, and who cares about what everything else that happened? Like
You
you're
know,
in the playoffs, and you would have beaten Ohio State for the fifth straight year. Like it's a great year regardless.
there's a lot of teams historically, and the one that comes to mind for me is Jim Tressel's first national championship at Ohio State. Like they were not, I mean, they had some blowouts on their schedule, but they also beat Cincinnati by 4. They barely beat a Purdue team. They had a big fourth down play. They beat them
Really,
10
yeah,
to 6. You know what I mean? Like it does happen. So like again, there's something to be said for winning close games, and those guys know what it takes to win those close games. And um, but that's being a fan in 2025,
yeah.
right? We
It's
get
just
people. It is,
it
and
just bugs me after a
I
win.
wonder, I know, I wonder
Or
this too.
7-2, and you're getting
Do
all
you
those calling for his head. It's just I don't like it.
do you think subconsciously there is the Indiana effect? And what I'm saying is like Kirk Cignetti, like man, everybody wishes they were Indiana in terms of like boom, just like that, they are nationally relevant and like they're loaded, right? And they're dominant, right? I wonder if sometimes fans in this new world of college football think that, right? Like, oh, it's not like Michigan State fans right now, right? There's no time to like develop and see what the offseason and the new NIL and all this other stuff that the athletic department has in the works. There's no time for that. Everybody is just ticked off,
You want to win now, and
you
that's
want
a
to
part
win
of the
now.
transfer portal too. You could add all of it:
Yes.
Signetti effect, the
Yeah.
transfer portal, NIL,
Yeah.
all that plays into it because you can have immediate success, and the fan base, and the schools, quite frankly, aren't going to allow you to have
No.
4 years. It used to be you get 4 years to have your first recruiting class
Correct.
go through the
Mm,
entire process. That's not the case anymore. Like, and
no.
speaking of the transfer portal, like they mentioned Purdue. I think it was 53 transfers, not 53 transfers like over the last 4 years, 53 transfers in 1 year. That's got almost a complete team turnover in 1 year.
Wild.
It's insanity.
That is insanity. Yep. And that's what it is. That's our reality. That's what we
Yeah,
all
and
wanted. That's what you
it's
all
tough,
wanted.
man.
That's what
It is so tough on college coaches, man. It is so
Yeah.
tough on them now.
Yeah.
It was
It's
always
almost
tough, but
I
now
just
it's
I had this conversation with a relative last night. It's like I think if you're a university, if you're not 100% all in on your football program and your other sports programs to a degree, but football obviously, right? Because of what it does for your university. If you're not 100% all in financially, why bother at all? Because you've heard those rumors about, hey, you're going to have that super league, and then everybody else is like in relegation, and they're just below, and they're not even right. If you're not all in, like, what's the point? And that's where we are now. Not saying I like it, but that's what it is.
yeah. I mean, it is getting to that point. It's gonna be fascinating. I think it's over the next 5 years. It's gonna be completely different. The
Mm.
whole structure of college football is gonna be completely different.
Is the
But but
NCAA
we'll,
going to be around? Like, who knows, Dan?
yeah,
Like,
yeah. Yeah. So sticking with college football a little bit, Brian, I'll let you run with this a little bit because you were texting me yesterday that you thought Michigan State got screwed. in their game, because I personally I saw the score and I saw they were up 7, and I'm like, oh man, good. They're gonna get a win. They desperately need it. And then I'm picking up my dinner. I'm picking up pizza, and they got a big screen TV, and all of a sudden Minnesota's coach is getting interviewed. I'm like, what happened? Like, so what happened with this game, Ryan? Where do you think Michigan State got screwed? And man, what a difficult loss for Jonathan Smith, who continues to fight for his job right now.
Well, a couple things. I'm not gonna lie. I generally don't do this, but I can't stand PJ Fleck. I generally am a coach defender, right? I appreciate. I've seen him at clinics and talk to guys on his staff, and he's very helpful. Like sometimes his shtick, though, dude, like it's bothering
It's
me.
run its
Like
course a little bit, I think.
it has, and he obviously has done some really good things at Western Michigan before, and then at Minnesota. But dude, just like sometimes it's like not gets under my skin a little bit. But that being said, I was I was texting with a family member who's a big Michigan State guy, and they're down 10-0, and he's ranting and raving about Jonathan Smith, and then Michigan State comes back to take the lead, and I'm like, man, give them credit, like for fighting, like give those kids credit for fighting and still playing hard, right? They hear all those rumors too about their coach going to be let go and he needs to move on and whatnot, and so give them a ton of credit for playing hard and taking the lead, and then Minnesota had a big drive to tie the game at the end, and then you get that version of the smash concept where the slot receivers run into the corner, and the defender blatantly grabs the receiver's t-shirt, and you can see it extended, and the broadcasters weren't even like questioning the call. It wasn't that's debatable. That's debatable. He grabbed him. And so could it have been defensive holding instead of pass interference? Sure, if you wanted. But you can't tell me it didn't hinder the receiver's ability to run his route and make his clean route. And then I can't imagine getting a play call, getting my offense lined up to run a play, and then having the officials stop that play, come together and say no. After discussing it, the flag is waved off. Like I can't imagine like how you can
Well, we can
emotionally
imagine it.
like we
We
can't
can
imagine.
imagine
Sure,
it.
yes.
The
I
Lions in
just
Dallas.
Yeah,
We
well,
can
yes.
imagine it.
I like what is going on here? And then I made the joke to my father-in-law about this. Like I don't. This is why I don't trust sports anymore. I don't trust the validity of sports anymore. This WWE, all this gambling nonsense. Like who the heck knows? That just blew me away. And then they end up kicking the field goal to take the lead, and Minnesota throws a ball to the deep, deep in the end zone, and Michigan State got a pass interference. And I'm just kind of like, God, what is it? Like, let them play or don't let them play. It was just awful. It was just frustrating, and not even from a fan perspective, maybe from a coach's perspective, maybe just an overall football guy perspective. Like, either let him play or don't. Like, it was blatant. He grabbed him. Call it. And I think it's disingenuous to throw the flag and then not immediately discuss it to see, hey, did I get that right? It wasn't immediately. It was after a team set the ball down for the next play and got the play call in and were ready to go. That's what's crazy, and that's what I can't believe. I mean, I know why. Like I know why ESPN and I know why CBS and all the other sports programs aren't going to hammer it home, right? Because you don't,
Yeah,
you
Michigan State,
don't.
Minnesota. Yeah, it's
Of
going to go under the
course,
radar for sure.
it is. Nobody's going to say anything. But like, what are we doing? Yeah, what are we doing? Like, either it's a flag or not. Like, if you're not sure, wait a second, don't throw it. But he blatantly grabbed the shirt, and so that was my frustration. And then
That's
again, could Michigan State say, like, okay, I believe in this. I never say one play doesn't determine the outcome of the game. Of course not, right? The defense didn't get a stop, like, or although they played well, they played really well, especially in the second half, right? There's a lot of things that go into it. Michigan State didn't play a great first half. They didn't, there's a lot that goes into it. But golly, that frustrated me more just because of like the state of athletics right now. And I know at one point, and we're going to talk about the gambling stuff and all that other stuff. Just frustrated.
Yeah. And just to go back on the penalty, like if a referee throws the flag, he saw it. Like he saw the penalty. Like he's throwing the flag for a penalty that he saw. So like I don't understand how they can like discuss it and say, well, it wasn't a penalty.
Line up
Like unless
and
it's like a
have your
12
other
men on the field type thing or something where like, hey,
totally.
no, like he did get off the field, or whether it was like, hey, referee throws a flag for delay of game, then another referee says, no, he got the timeout, the coach got the timeout. Like, yeah, that's understandable. But for a judgment call where it's either pass interference or it's not, for one referee to throw the flag in real time, he saw it. It's in his mind. He saw pass interference and he threw the flag. I don't understand how you can pick it up.
Well, that's
It doesn't make any sense to me at
and
all.
that's something I wish I kind of wish like we knew what the officials were talking about or in that conversation. Like did the one come over and say, "Hey, no, you saw that wrong. That wasn't actually a shirt you saw him pull." You know what I mean? Like what do you say? Or no, that was it was a inadvertent. Like how do you by the way,
Did
you
they
were
start
wrong.
fighting? Like, no, I
Yeah,
saw it.
like no, like what do you do?
And then who
But
was I guess the head official would have the final
on
say.
for
But
the record, there was some local flavor in that officiating crew. There was one she has local ties. She played women's professional football here in Detroit, and then she's been a high school official in Michigan. So it's kind of cool to see her on the field. I don't think she was the one. She's not the one who made that call and changed anything. So which is because she's pretty cool. She didn't do that,
you're not
but
going to throw her under the bus.
no, I'm not gonna throw her under the bus. No, she did really well. But I'm curious. I would love to know what that conversation was like. I would love to know what it was like.
Yeah, it was interesting. So I was watching college football all day yesterday, and trying to remember. It might have been the Vanderbilt Texas game. I forget exactly. It was an SEC game. I forget exactly which one it was. But they were going to the replay booth, and they had everything was mic'd up, so you could hear like the conversation between whoever the head guy was in the replay center talking to the referee, who was also mic'd up. So you could hear the actual conversation that they were having and going through each detail of whether it was a catch or not. I'm like, holy cow! Like, can we get this for everything, for every official call? Can we especially get it in the NFL, because this is awesome? This is transparency. This is what you want.
Yes.
This is what all fans want, and I think this is what we need in sports to help with this ever going narrative that like sports are rigged.
Yes, that's what we're battling. That's what sports are going to continue to battle. Yep.
Yeah.
Because
So
they've allowed it. They've allowed it. Not that I'm against it necessarily, but they've allowed that when things happen like this.
yeah. So yeah, speaking of, some of the worst aspects of sports, right? That bad refereeing, questionable calls. Is it rigged? Is it not? That's the bad part of sports that we don't want to see. Now, the great part of sports, what we saw, over the past week, really the whole season in Major League Baseball, it was a phenomenal season, phenomenal playoffs. But one of the all-time great World Series that we've ever seen. Goes 7 games, goes into extra innings. Dodgers end up winning it with a Will Smith home run, and then closing the deal in the bottom of the 11th. What an amazing game! What an amazing series! And Brian, what are your just overall thoughts about this incredible World Series we got to watch?
I was rooting for the Blue Jays, so I was a little bit upset at the end of the night. But man, like I think I sent the text to you. Like the Dodgers did everything they had to do perfectly in the 8th and 9th innings to even get it to extras, and then in the 10th, like they did everything correctly. They Max Muncy hit a homer to cut it to 1, and then the home run in the 9th, Rojas to tie the game,
Rojas out
and
of
then
nowhere,
and then amazing defensive plays, right? Goodness, like it was pretty that was pretty awesome to watch. As much as and it's not even like I know a lot of fans like have a disdain for the Dodgers because of their payroll, right? Well, nobody in Detroit was complaining when the Red Wings had the highest payroll for all those years and were winning championships. You know what I'm saying? So it is. I mean, it is what it is. It's not ideal, but like, man, like it was awesome. And the narrative, and you're going to hear this a lot, and I think we already have, or I've seen it on Twitter, and I'm sure on the radio this week when they talk about this game. Pitchers who Yamamoto, when it was time, man, he threw 96 pitches in Game 6, and then he's out there for 3 scoreless innings.
unreal,
and he had 3 wins, and he should have been the MVP. But
I didn't even see who actually won the MVP.
he did. Yamamoto won.
Did he win? Okay, I was going to say if he didn't win it, that would have been ridiculous.
No, he absolutely carried them, and that was pretty awesome. And then he was extremely emotional at the end of the game. Those guys were all spent, but man, I felt horrible for the Blue Jays, but there were a couple things again, like sometimes like when you have teams that are that close in a game seven, it's the small things in a play here and there that changes everything. I know the Blue Jays were. I can't think of the guy's name. There was a replacement for Bo Bichette, who was, I think he was on third
Oh, kind of
base.
Falefa.
Yeah, when he was on third base and he got thrown out, forced out at the plate. A lot of
No
debate.
lead
This is
off.
yeah, yeah, a little geeky, right? Did he get a good secondary lead and maybe he shouldn't have slid into home because it was a force out. It wasn't going to be a tag. And but those little inches, made the difference. Or the throw from Rojas, like he made a great play.
Yeah, and he was
You
stumbling
know what I'm
as he threw it.
saying?
Was able
He
to
made a
gather
great play.
himself
And
just in the nick
do
of
you know?
time to get that throw.
So I took a walk this morning and it was eerie because I found some Blue Jay, like some Locked On Blue Jays podcasts, and I found a couple other of the Blue Jays fans podcasts after the game. And it sounded like game five Tigers Mariners. Like they were hammering home, Blue Jays getting runners on base, less than 2 outs, couldn't get them in. And that was and it happened, right? It happened with Varishal hit the ground ball to second base, couldn't hit a fly ball to get a sac fly in the game, right? And then Clement hit the bomb to left field, right? And just an awesome catch by Pajes, but they didn't get the winning run in, and they could have done so. And
But I mean, those were spectacular
they
plays
were
by the Dodgers.
I
It's not like the Blue Jays were
no
just going up there and swinging and missing like the Tigers
no
had some
no well
weekends.
that's
They
okay,
were
that's
making
fair,
contact and
that's
it
fair,
forcing the Dodgers to miss
that's
some
fair,
spectacular
for
plays,
sure.
and they made those plays over
That
and over again.
100%. It was just a bottom line. Hey, they didn't get the job done. That was all in game seven, and it's
But
harsh.
I don't think
And
it's
it's
by
harsh.
the only thing
No,
I would the lead off, not getting the lead off of the third by Falef. That's the
so
problem. I
that's
think that
not
was a
to get.
mistake.
You can get kind of geeky there, like because you're thinking, like, okay, you don't. There's only one out. You don't want to get doubled off, right?
Double off. I
Right.
get that.
The thinking is yes. The thinking is like only go as far as the third baseman, but when you lose the World Series, if
Man,
you win the World Series by
in
that
one step. He
couple
has one more
inches,
step on his leadoff. They win the World Series.
which
It's
is
that
it's
close.
that close. It's that close. Yeah.
And that's the bigger topic, I think, Brian, is like people are saying, oh, the Dodgers win this, it ruins baseball. I'm like, look how close this
hmm
was, man. Look how evenly matched those two teams were. And you look how evenly matched the Blue Jays and the Dodgers were. Then you look how evenly matched the Blue Jays and the Mariners were. The
Yeah.
Mariners, had a lead in that game seven. And then you
Yeah.
look how close the Mariners and the Tigers were. You look how
Yeah.
close the Tigers and the Guardians were. Man,
Yeah.
there's as much as talk as there is about the disparity of the salaries between teams, the top and the bottom, there's a lot. There is a lot. I know the Dodgers have won back to back. I get it, but just overall, man, the teams that can compete, these teams are really close, and there's
hmm
a lot of parity.
Yeah.
There's a lot of teams that are contenders and that are close,
Yeah.
and you saw it in these playoffs.
Yeah. And what are you and I most excited about now? That baseball off season.
Oh,
And
hot
man,
stove
we
week.
can't wait. Yeah, we can't wait to see who's going where and what the Tigers are going to do, man. Yeah, it's awesome. I was some of the things that stood out to me too was like the Blue Jays, and it goes against what I've talked about a little bit with Riley Green and Spencer Torkelson and my frustrations there, right? And I've said it to you before, like Riley Green can go and I'd be all right, but like Vlad Guerrero Jr. And Bo Bichette, like they're 26, I think, right? And they had some good years, but it really took until this season, especially for Vladdy, right, to like establish themselves as like boom, like bona fide superstar, right? So again, what does Scott Harris want to do with those guys? Is just again fascinating, right? If he thinks they're going to still develop and adjust the swing a little bit more contact, and that's something we didn't talk about either. And the Tigers are getting a new hitting coach, and you want, like I've always said that, like, okay, like when it came to like guys like Miguel Cabrera, Victor Martinez, or some of the dudes the Tigers had, say name some of the best hitters in baseball. How much is a hitting coach really doing other than supplying the film? You know what I mean? Like I wonder. I don't know. I would love to have that conversation, right? Because I'm
Yeah,
sure like Chris Fetter, he gets a lot of credit for what he's done with the Tiger pitching staff. Is that arm slot? Is it grip? Is it in between starts? You know what I'm saying? I wonder. And so I wonder now if the Tigers, this will be an interesting hire for their next hitting coach. to see if it's a guy who has a history, and if Scott Harris says it's a guy with a history of, like you've mentioned before, hey, we need guys that, like, high contact guys that own the strike zone. But I'm going off a little bit, but those are things that stood out to me yesterday.
Yeah, and the stat that I saw that, going into that game seven that kind of blew me away the most was that the Blue Jays had the lowest swing and width,
Hmm.
and swing and miss, and the lowest strikeout rate of any team in baseball. And obviously, I mean, an inch away from winning it all.
Right.
And you go back to the Tigers and how far off they are with that. It was such a struggle all season with how much they struck out, and this goes to show you that Scott Harris's philosophy, makes so much
And,
sense on both sides of the ball. You can't walk guys as pitchers, and you can't strike out, or at least at a high rate with your lineup, because you got to be able to make contact.
and you say that, and you mention that, and I want, maybe it further helps his argument that, without making a big trade at the trade deadline, they weren't just one player away. You know what I mean? They weren't just one. They
Well,
weren't Eugenio. Yeah, they weren't a Eugenio Suarez away from getting to the World Series against the Dodgers. You know what I mean? They just weren't. It'll take it. Again, fascinating. There'll be some maneuvering this winter, you hope, to see what it's, if we're going to get to what Scott Harris wants, and to what his
well,
philosophy is.
yeah, I mean, obviously, it all starts with Scooble and what decision
Yeah.
is made there. But outside of that, you're looking at maybe who could be the best player they could acquire, and the guy that we've been just talking about is Bo Bichette. I mean,
Hmm.
you gotta make a strong effort to go get him, because I heard it brought up in Game 7 last night. He was the best player all season with runners in scoring position. And
Yeah.
what is the biggest issue with the Tigers? Hitting with runners in scoring position. You go out and get a Bo Bichette. Not only does it, I mean, just like a huge increase to your lineup and better your overall team, but you're also taking away from the Blue Jays, who are, the American League champs. It will be the defending American League champs, and like I said, we're an inch away from winning it all. So, like, that type of move, that is a needle mover. You want to talk about a needle mover type move? The transaction, getting a Bo Bichette would change this team and change the outlook, not only locally but nationally, where people view the Tigers, and whether they're a World Series contender or not.
And I guess the question becomes, it comes back to Chris Ilitch, like, because these guys, like, aren't going to be looking for a 1-year deal. Like, Alex Bregman's not going to want
Yeah,
a 1-year deal
yeah.
again. You know what I mean? Like, so it's all going to be so. Like, okay, we both agree this is under the assumption they're not resigning Terry Skubal, right? If they're given a
Yeah, they're not
contract
going to sign him. The
if they're
question is,
given
do you go 1 year
right, right,
stupid well with 1 more
right,
year?
right. So if they give a big contract to somebody else, like you said, Bo Bichette or whoever,
Or
they're
Bregman,
not.
yeah.
Yeah,
Those would
Bregman.
be the
Yeah,
top
they're
two
not.
candidates.
That's it. Yep. They're not receiving. It's going to be a contract that is with a lot of years. Like, at least, I bet you at least 5 years. It's not, probably not going to be a 1-year guy. But that's up. No, but he's a great target. I wonder. Like, I wonder Kyle Tucker. Like, they're like, with Parker Meadows and his, like, who knows if he's going to develop into everyday center fielder. Are they really going to go another year with Javi Baez going out there and then playing short? Like, right? Like, who knows? But again, fascinating. Looking forward to it.
I think he
Fascinating.
would be down the list a little bit. If those guys aren't available to you, the Bregman or the Bichette, I just think from a position standpoint, those guys make more sense. But if those guys, you check those guys off the list, they're not available to the Tigers, then yeah, I think Tucker would be a
Yeah.
guy to go after. And obviously he's got experience with Inch, there's a relationship there.
I
So,
one
that's a possibility too.
one of the things, that I'd be interested to see is, like, you were at Game 4 against the Mariners, and where it wasn't a sellout crowd, and there's a lot of reasons for that. It was a weird time, but we also agree that, like, we kind of felt like people didn't believe they were gonna come through,
They didn't believe
and they're
him,
like giving up,
especially
right? They
after
didn't believe.
they got blown out in game 3.
If we get an off season of, like, Alex Cobb, right, and
They
Tommy and
can't, they can't.
Tommy Canley again, man, no, it's gonna be like, what are we doing? No,
Well, what did Chris Ilitch say the whole time? He said, and much like his dad said too, but more recently, Chris Ilitch said, "When the time is right, I'll spend."
Yep,
Well, what? I mean, this is the time. I mean,
let's
look
do
how
it.
close they are.
Correct. And again, if you look at the fan viewership and attendance and how much that increased for the Tigers this past season, right? What does that tell you? Like you're gonna recoup, like, and then if you make a deep playoff run, like, dude, you're gonna make money. The Tigers have had a history. They've had seasons where they've had 3 million in attendance come through Comerica
And
Park. Like,
I'll make this point too. Okay, everybody, that's why you can't lose Scooble. You can't lose Scooble. You can't lose Scooble. Right? Only pitches once every fifth day. So I just look at this from a business perspective, right? If you didn't spend that money on Scooble, you let him go. Whether you trade him or you just go 1 year and then let him go. From a business perspective, wouldn't it make a lot more sense to spend that money on some big hitters instead of one starting pitcher who only pitches once every fifth day? From a ticket selling perspective. And I bring that up because of the playoff game, right? Why did everybody lose faith in the Tigers? It wasn't because of their pitching.
right,
It's because they couldn't hit. They
right.
couldn't hit consistently. They don't have any stars in their lineup. Anybody that anybody goes out to see, maybe Riley Green a little bit, but I still wouldn't put him in that category. And outside of Riley Green, who else is there? I mean, Kerry a little bit, Kerry Carpenter, but there's no stars. There's no stars in that lineup. There's no Miguel Cabrera, Victor Martinez, JD Martinez, Curtis Granderson types. There's none of those guys that people are coming out to see. There just
Right.
isn't. When people want to buy tickets, they wanted to buy tickets to go see Scooble when he was pitching. But again, once every fifth day.
Yep.
Whereas if you get some hitters in your lineup, they're playing every day.
Yep.
And if you're buying a ticket, you're going to see those stars in the lineup.
Baseball,
Go to that game.
and baseball is the one sport where like you can win so many different ways, right? There's been teams that have won that have never had a 300 hitter, teams that won that didn't have a 20-game winner. It happens. And again, I do think there's a path for the Tigers to, if they trade Skubal and acquire like some of those names that were mentioned from the Mets and maybe go sign somebody like Dylan Cease this offseason. Ooh, right? Who knows? And Jack Flaherty again, maybe like he's a guy you could resign for a year, I'm sure, right?
That's another thing that came out too. It's going to happen this week. You're going to find out whether Flaherty is going to opt in for next season or not. He's got a $20 million player option. So that's going to be a key aspect to see where this offseason goes. So right off the bat, baseball ends Saturday night. We're already going to get some big moves this week with the Tigers when it comes to the Hot Stove League and whether Flaherty is going to pick up that option or not.
I'm curious, and I hope we know early on as a Tiger fan. Like, I don't want to go through the winter getting my hopes up, and then they do nothing, and they go into spring training, and you're just like, oh. Like, I hope early on we have an idea, and their name, and the Tigers are in on a bunch of guys. That's I think what we all want. That's what we all want.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Brad, we got a few minutes left. I just want to wrap it up with this. The Blue Jays, you brought it up, like you felt bad for the Blue Jays and felt bad for Blue Jay fans. The crushingness of that loss to be that close so many different times throughout the night. You even go back to Game 6. They won Game 6. They win it all. They had a good game that time, but it was even, just unbelievable last night in Game 7, how close they came so many times. They were 2 outs away, and Rojas, of all guys, the number 9 hitter guy you least expect.
That's like
Dodgers to hit the big home run. He hits it with 2 outs left. Like, oh my goodness. To be inches away so many times.
The equivalent of like Justin Henry Malloy hitting the game tying home run. You know what I mean? And that's what it's like. But yeah,
but it brings up the topic. You wanted to discuss it a little bit. Like you think about the Blue Jays and how crushing that was. Just some of the most and we know as Detroit sports fans, like we've lived through some absolute crushing defeats in Detroit sports history. So not exactly the best topic to end things on, but we look back on it. It was something we wanted to talk about. Like, what do you think about some of the most crushing losses? And you try to feel like what the Blue Jays were feeling a little bit. What are some ones that stand out to you?
All right, I've got a list, and I'll try to make it quick because I know you've got some too. So from my childhood, Pistons Celtics, Eastern Conference Finals, Game 5. Bird steals the ball. Pistons are about to be up 3-2 in the series, and instead, they're down 3-2, and that was crushing as a 9-year-old. I've got a couple Lions. I'm going to skip those. Red Wings, they lost 2 Game 7s in 94 and 95, and to the Maple Leafs, and then 95 to the Sharks. And the one that got me there is that the Red Wings were the number 1 seed and the Sharks were the 8 seed, and I think that was the first time an 8 ever beat a 1, and I remember being
Yeah, they won the
crushed.
President's Trophy that
They
year, best
right,
record in the NHL.
just awful. Obviously, we have your Michigan trouble with the snap. I think is pretty crushing. That one stuck out to me. And then Michigan State in 1990 had a 19-7 lead against number 1 Notre Dame and lost 20-19. And they had a chance to seal an interception at the end of the game, and it bounced off the defender's chest to a Notre Dame receiver, and he caught it at the 2-yard line. Tigers. Obviously, game 163 against the Twins was
Yeah.
rough. 2009, and then the David Ortiz Grand Slam in 2013, game 6 against the Tigers Red Sox, where Torrey Hunter flips over the fence and the security guard is cheering, and I was just miserable. But big ones for the Lions that stood out to me: Sterling Sharp in the end zone, 1994. Brett Favre's coming out party because the Lions beat them the week before to win the division and host that game. And then obviously, like, this is. People that know me know I've said this before, the NFC Championship game against the 49ers. I don't know if the Lions are ever again going to have it that set up for them, where you're up 17 in the second half to go to the Super Bowl. I don't know if they're going to get that close again. And some of my friends are like, "No, what are you doing?" I don't think so. Everything was
Today's
set
kind of
up.
evidence of
Today
that.
is
Like
that
you think,
like
oh, they're gonna roll over the Vikings. You get it's this confidence in this
no.
team. You're like, and then you're humbled. Like
Yeah.
today, you're humbled and you're reminded it is hard to win in the
Mhm.
NFL, regardless of how much talent you have.
And it might be one of those deals. That team might be like, hey, one of the best teams to never win a Super Bowl. That might be one of them. And so that's still to this day, like, for all the great things. And I'm a coach defender. Dan Campbell's done. This isn't all on him, but like, gosh, that's a tough one. Lions fans, we're never gonna get over that.
Yeah, you kind of nailed on the big ones, and the two ones that stand out the most are the David Ortiz Grand Slam in 2013, because the Tigers were up 5-1. They had Verlander set to pitch Game 3 at home.
Mhm.
Like, it was over. The series was over. And you talk about like not being able to hit. Like, the Tigers pitching was dominating the Red Sox. They almost
Mhm.
had a no hitter in Game
They
1.
did.
Won
Yep.
that game 1-0 with Anibal
Yep.
Sanchez pitching, and then they go into Game 2. Scherzer was absolutely dominant, and you're up 5-1 with 4 outs to go, and Ortiz hits a home run, and it changed everything. Then they lose 1-0 in a Verlander start at home, and then they never got back to that point again. And they still haven't gotten back to that point. Like, they had it, and that's the best Tiger team in my lifetime. That 2013
Yep.
team, because that pitching staff is one of the greatest of all time. I mean, all those guys outside of Fister, the other 4 all won Cy Youngs, and Fister was a great pitcher himself. And then they would all go on to win World Series elsewhere, which is just, I mean, all of it, you look back and it's just so crushing. And then he brought up the Lions 49ers, and that loss, what I felt afterwards, and it's stupid to feel this way. It's like, oh, well, it's kind of with the first year of their run. Their guys are so young. They're going to have this core for a while. Like, they're going to have more opportunities. I thought that same thing in 2006 with the Tigers. When they lost to the Cardinals, I thought, man, but this is just the first year. They're going to have so many good years. They didn't make it back to the playoffs until 2011. It was 5 years later.
You just don't
so
know.
You just never know. Like, when those opportunities happen and you have a 17-point lead in the second half, you got to finish it. Like, you have to finish it. Like, you're that close to getting to the Super Bowl. You have to finish it. And because you never know if those opportunities are going to come again. And it was so wild that Dan Campbell to say that to his guys in the locker room. Like, I don't know if we'll ever get back to this point again. He was so honest, and almost honest to a fault, but he was right. He's right, because you really don't know if you're ever going to get back, because it's so hard. It's so difficult.
And then, with that, so the Lions now, like, they've extended Hutchinson, they've extended JMO. If the Lions don't get to the Super Bowl this year, like, or even if they do, really, like, you're going to start talking about you might have to restructure the roster a little bit. Like, you might, like we just talked about a little bit ago, the offensive line, and rebuild that spot. And who else do you sign? Who do you say, you know what, we're not going to resign, and start thinking all that. Like, so many things came from that the second half of that game. Yep.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yep.
Well, you got any final thoughts as we head out here, Brian?
No, great show. I'm excited about I'm excited about what we have planned for the next week, the next coming weeks, Dan. Very exciting stuff. And yeah, it's gonna be an awesome conversation next week as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we sign off, I just want to, shout out to everybody that's been following us, watching our stuff. We're seeing the views, we're seeing the comments. Things are increasing day by day, and we just want to thank all you guys for continuing to watch us, continuing to comment on us, and we appreciate if you guys subscribe and share and do all that great stuff for us, and continue to help us grow because we're putting a lot of work into this, and we're having a blast doing it, and we love all the engagement we're getting from it, and we love hearing back from you guys. So if you guys got questions or comments, absolutely leave them. And again, thank you all guys for following us as we continue along here and continue doing these shows and these podcasts because we're having a blast doing it. And that will wrap it up for us. For Brian Barnes, I'm Dan Murphy, and we'll see you again next week.